Welcome to this edition of the Sharp Football Analysis Podcast. We've got Rich Hribar, Raymond Summerlin, and myself. We're going to be breaking down some of the best free agent signings so far through free agency as we stand here on Tuesday afternoon. Let's dive into it. All right, we've seen a lot of money spent by a lot of different teams so far in free agency. There are still some guys yet to be signed, but as we sit here right now, we want to share some of our favorite free agency moves that have been made. Let's start with you, Rich. What's one of the favorite free agency moves that you have seen so far?
Yeah, my favorite move so far, from like a business stance, and then from our neck of the woods, like a fantasy stance, is the Dolphins. Signing Malik Willis to that contract, and you look at this Malik Willis signing, and it's just really all about upside, and there's really kind of no risk here for the Dolphins. I mean, $22.5 million per year. It's kind of a bargain for what he could become. I don't believe that there's any chance he rolls over the efficiency stats that he had in Green Bay. Like, he's not going to complete 80% of his passes for 11 yards per pass attempt, or this is going to be like a Boku home run, but he's only 3% and 9% of the salary cap the next 2 years. He doesn't preclude them from even getting into the quarterback market next year if things go bad. They had no path to Fernando Mendoza. There's only one quarterback should go in the first round this year. So I look at this just from like an upside and a dollar stance. It's like, this is the type of move to kind of make given the situation that they're in right now, because it's kind of just an all upside type of play for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I don't disagree personally. I like the move. I'm interested to see how he fits behind that offensive line, one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines in the NFL. That's one of my main concerns. Tua had to completely change the way that, Mike McDaniel had to completely change the way that he was going to implement Tua. Quick pass attack. They had the fastest time to release, one of the shortest target depths, at least in the last season. Obviously, Malik Willis is a very different player than that. He had one of the deepest target depths during his time in Green Bay. Definitely going to obviously call things a little bit differently down there in Miami without Mike McDaniel there. So it's going to be intriguing to see how Malik Willis fits in. But certainly they needed to make a move. Time for Tua to go. And Tua, I don't think, would transition as well behind that line in a different scheme. We'll talk about Tua in another video, but I definitely don't disagree with you on that one. Ray, any thoughts on the Malik Willis signing down to the Miami Dolphins, as well as one of your favorite signings so far this period?
Yeah, I mean, I like it just fine. I think it came in at a lower cost than I expected it to be. And as Rich said, I think this is ultimately a why not kind of situation for the Dolphins. You're not going anywhere this year. Very likely the moves that they have made have, kind of shown that this is going to be a bit of a rebuild. So if you're rebuilding, you want to see what you have in Malik Willis. Like Rich said, it's not an exorbitant price as quarterbacks go. And we do have this history here of him, being successful in that Packers system, being able to create. You mentioned the offensive line he create with his legs. Yeah, I like it just fine. Like, it doesn't bowl me over, but there's certainly nothing, against it. And there's actually a lot of that for me in this free agency class. Like, we had this question of what's your favorite free agent signing, and I really struggled to come up with one, because there are lots of signings that I like just fine. Like, I think Tyler Linderbaum is an excellent signing for the Raiders. He's exactly what they needed. They couldn't create yards for Ashton Jeanty last year. They're going to have a rookie quarterback, everybody assumes, and Fernando Mendoza this year. Like, that's a great signing. But he also reset the center market by literally $9 million per year, right? And so he costs a lot of money. I like John Franklin Myers. I think John Franklin Myers is a really good player, coming off of a bit of a down year last year, but he's reuniting with Robert Saleh. I think he's a versatile, really good addition. But again, he costs a lot as well. If we want to get into the idea even of trades, right? I think DJ Moore is probably being undersold how good he is, based on the very clear issues he had with Caleb Williams, both from, it seemed like their personalities didn't mesh. Caleb Williams kind of per throw target, accuracy wasn't very good, and that kind of seemed to hurt Moore. I think Moore is going to play a lot better this next year in Buffalo than he has been playing with the Bears. But obviously the price of that move, a second round pick, maybe more like a third round pick if you throw in the swaps and everything and you just kind of do the value. But that's still a lot to pay for DJ Moore, who's older, coming off of a tough year. And so I look at all of these and I say, yeah, I like these moves, but I'm not I'm not blown away from that by them. And this isn't just like a free agency is terrible thing kind of take, because we have a very recent example of free agency working out very well for the Seattle Seahawks in some ways. So that's not part of this. It worked out really well for the Patriots last year as well. It's also not me playing this game of most free agents are probably going to fail. It's a lot easier to predict failure because more often than not in free agency, you're going to be right. I'm not even trying to do that as well. I just really wasn't that moved by anything I saw this year, even signings that I know, like with Malik Willis or some that I know you're going to talk about, Warren, that I liked. I liked those signings. It just wasn't anything that really like jumped out to me. Does that seem fair? Is that kind of how y'all are feeling about a lot of what you're looking at?
I think in the Linderbaum thing, I definitely agree. In some of the guys that you mentioned, I can't disagree much. The Linderbaum signing obviously was a great fit. The question is, did they overpay? The answer is yes, but does it really matter that much, especially when you're going to be utilizing a rookie quarterback on that rookie deal? They had to get something there. Clint Kubiak coming in. Seattle Seahawks had the #1 highest run rate overall in games last season. They need to run the football. We saw Ashton Jeanty get contacted in the backfield. I had a stat here. The Raiders averaged 0.5 yards before contact per rush last year. Not only was that the worst of any team in the NFL last year, it's the worst of any team in the NFL since 2013. They could not get any traction going there. So Linderbaum helps out massively. So he's a guy that, we'll talk about the Raiders in a totally different video. Tune in for that, where we discuss some of the teams and some of their overall moves. The Raiders clearly spending a lot.
No, I mean, I agree. Pretty much every year we've had, you have the inflation of the salary cap expanding. Most players, we very rarely get great players that hit free agency. It's usually guys that time up either having like their best season in a contract year, or you're getting a discount on a player that was injured or underperformed. That's just kind of how the market works. Occasionally you get like a Linderbaum, and if Linderbaum was able to be put as an actual center, not an offensive lineman, he probably would have been tagged. Like he would have been franchise tagged. So you kind of loopholed his way through there and got the big money there. So also too, I think the most interesting thing I think that we saw just with the day going by is I think we did get some indicators on like how the NFL is handling some of this draft class, especially the running back market. We saw this a couple years ago in 2024 when it was the worst running back class I've ever covered since I've been doing it. And that was the year that we saw a bunch of money get thrown away at running backs. Obviously we had Saquon and Big Dog and Josh Jacobs, but like guys like Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift were in that class. And we saw teams aggressively play the running back market on day one and get known commodities versus maybe trying to use some of those swings on running backs when they can be taking DBs and edge rushers, getting contractual leverage. So I think there are some indicators there early on that the NFL feels a lot like a lot of us that have taken like a early look in this from a fantasy stance, that this running back class is definitely not it.
And that's something Ryan and I actually talked about after Jeremiah Love's performance at the Combine. I predicted Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs, because if you watch that, the Chiefs are sitting there at 9. They're going, well, Love's not getting to me.
And the Saints at 8.
Like and the Saints at 8 with Etienne. Love's not getting to me. I have to do something if I really want to upgrade my running back room, because it's not going to be Jadarian Price in the second round. It's not going to be Katron Allen, Penn State legend. Sorry, Katron Allen in the second round. We have to do something. And both those teams went out and did something.
Yeah, that's actually the guy for me, I think was one of the best and my favorite signings of free agency. You get a guy like Kenneth Walker. If you look at his contract, he's right below Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley. Barkley and CMC are way up there. Then you're talking about he's only $1 million, $2 million more than like currently what the Saints have Alvin Kamara signed for, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, like in that neighborhood, just a little bit higher than that. So I don't think he's being overpaid. I don't think it was a massive overpay by the Kansas City Chiefs to bring him in. But the fit, I think, is going to be really fun, especially if you look at the toast that was on that running back core and that running back room for the Chiefs last year with Isaiah Pacheco, who just went to Detroit. And I know we've got some feelings on his being able to replace David Montgomery behind an even worse offensive line. But statistically, Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, one of the worst backfields in the NFL last year. If we look at Pacheco specifically, of 49 qualifying running backs with 100 plus rushing attempts, Pacheco ranked number 46 in explosive run rate, 47th in success rate, 47th in his longest rush. I mean, I couldn't believe 118 rushing attempts. His longest rush was only 16 yards. It was very fun for us in our props group last year, sending out to subs Isaiah Pacheco longest run under for several weeks until the books massively adjusted and they had to drop it down to like 9.5, etc. He was 38th in yards per carry. This was despite the fact that he faced the NFL's highest rate of light boxes, lowest rate of 7+ man boxes or 8+ man boxes. And now you introduce Kenneth Walker, who is the exact inverse of that. Kenneth Walker faced the number 4 highest rate of stacked boxes because the Seattle Seahawks run the football a lot, and they do so from some heavier personnel groupings, which encourages defenses to stack the box. He's going to find more opportunities in Kansas City. No, they aren't going to run the football. So I don't mean more as in higher number, but more opportunities to produce when he does get the football, because the Chiefs are going to pass the ball far more than the Seattle Seahawks did last year, where Kenneth Walker was putting up his statistics. But he is not going to need to share the backfield with Zach Charbonnet. He's not going to get those touchdowns vultured by Zach Charbonnet either. And so you guys, more so the fantasy football gurus on the staff here, can chime in about what you think from a upside appeal from Kenneth Walker in fantasy. But I just think he's a good fit for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he's going to be productive for them. He's a much needed piece, especially with Patrick Mahomes returning back from his injury to start the season. They might lean a little bit more into the run game. They bring back Eric Bieniemy to call plays for them. He might lean more into the run game as well to start the season. So I think, especially when you're trying to run the clock out on games, not have Patrick Mahomes continue to drop back to throw the ball in the fourth quarter of games if they have the lead, Kenneth Walker is a great player to have in that mix. So I definitely don't hate that one. I also threw in there Nakobe Dean. I think he makes a lot of sense for the Las Vegas Raiders. But any thoughts there real quick on Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs from either of you guys?
Yeah, I think it's a great sign on paper. It's funny that it feels like there's an over calibration. Like the Chiefs have been so bad running the football, but it's also like the Tim Robinson meme. Like, who could have done this? Like, we have a seventh round guy who broke his leg in the ghost of Kareem Hunt. It's like, why weren't we better at running the football? So it's like, kind of like said, they went from like one polar opposite to the other. So like they probably could have done this, I think, a little cheaper and gotten like an improvement, but obviously going the full 9 to Kenneth Walker, who going back to Michigan State is just a guy that churned out explosives. And this is a team just generally lacked explosives in the run game the past 4 years because the guys that have come through there. And, it used to be you wanted an Andy Reid running back, and we've kind of gone through like a period where that's been dormant. So it'd be interesting to see if it comes back and we get this involved. The one kind of maybe nit to pick, though, is like Kenneth Walker shared time with Zach Charbonnet because he has clear faults as a player too. Like he's one of the worst pass protectors at running back. And that was something that we even saw George Holani like cut into some of his snaps in the playoffs after Charbonnet got hurt in that regard. So it's interesting to see if the Chiefs end up trying to make a pivot in that capacity where like we don't get maybe the full capacity run out, but this is kind of like just objectively awesome though, especially from like the fantasy football lens of Kenneth Walker landing here.
And I also wonder, I mean, like I would say the obvious weakness of Kenneth Walker is he's going to have negative runs because of the way he plays. We just know that he's boom and bust. But like, is it going to be worse than what you're getting out of Pacheco and Hunt? And you might actually get some explosive runs on the other side of it rather than just negative runs, just for the hell of it. And I'm glad you brought up the light box thing, Warren, because we've watched Kenneth Walker create big plays against heavy boxes. And now that we would assuming Patrick Mahomes comes back healthy and still looks like Patrick Mahomes, that he's going to face a lot more light boxes. The league-wide explosive run rate against light boxes last year was 12.5%. The league-wide explosive run rate against 7 or more defenders in the box was 9.2%. It's a 3% difference. Talking about those low percentages, if Walker, who we know is explosive, is also going to get a lot more light boxes, we're going to see, you would guess, a lot more explosive runs out of him as well. And just one more thing on Rich's point, this isn't a Chiefs offense that's just looking for more explosive runs. This is a Chiefs offense that is just looking for more explosive plays in general, because that's just haven't existed for this team for the last couple of years. So you put it all together, and again, I think it makes a lot of sense. You're going to spend a lot on a running back. Should you do that? I don't know. And that's kind of gets down to that point of, are there any of these great signings? I'm not sure. But like from a just pure fit perspective, yeah, 100%.
All right, well, that covers some of our favorite signings so far in free agency. We've got other videos. We're going to talk about some of the worst signings of free agency, some of the steals, some of the team wins, and some of the strangest moves that left us scratching our head. So make sure you tune in for all of our videos and make sure that you're signed up for our newsletter. Go to sharp.football, click the link at the top. It's absolutely free to sign up. We're going to be mailing out some of our articles this offseason to talk about some of these free agent fits. Rich has been writing up a lot of them over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. So you don't want to miss out on anything. Check out the newsletter, tune in some of our other videos. Make sure that you're subscribed below. We'll see you soon.